Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you? What's been happening? I've been thinking about the last 2 months of the year recently and how during that time, our to-do lists can grow increasingly long at a very quick pace. And if you're anything like me, the brain tends to believe at this time that there's always just a few more things that we could get done. Whether it's a few more tasks in the business so I can work ahead before the holidays, or it's a couple extra errands or a few meetings, or maybe there are additional school events or the office party at work. These last few months of the year often seem to bring with them additional demands. And if we're not intentional about what we're saying yes to and how we're budgeting our time, we can find ourselves buzzing from one activity to the next without ever slowing down and enjoying what can be such a beautiful season. We miss it because we're going from one thing to the next so quickly. And as I thought about how we might navigate this increase in demand on our time, I thought it could be a really great time to bring back the concept of the not to-do list, holiday edition. Now, I know this might seem strange at first, especially because I just mentioned that during this season, our to-do lists tend to get extra long. So what do you mean a not to-do list? I know for myself, prioritization can get extra challenging at this time because with the holidays, there's this increase in external deadlines and demands that frankly seem much less flexible. So now I'm juggling these strong competing demands in a whole bunch of areas of my life, things at work. I have to get the gifts done on time. I have to be at the party on time. And I have all these have tos and shoulds that want to sneak into my mind because everything seems equally important. And this results in a huge list of random things on my to-do list, ranging from planning Thanksgiving dinner to working ahead on the podcast for work to thinking about gifts to whether or not I have wrapping paper. Although I'm pretty sure as I'm saying this out loud, I got rid of all of it when we moved. So that's probably one I want to keep on my list. I probably need wrapping paper. Needless to say, that to-do list during the holiday season can get quite long, quite fast. And because most of us are time blind, we have no idea how much time we actually need to get it all done. So what we tend to do is keep saying yes to the holiday gatherings, to planning out all the Hanukkah gifts, to hosting the winter solstice party, to volunteering at the school's winter concert, to attending all the different Thanksgiving meals with every family member and in-law who is hosting. And I didn't even mention the push that a lot of us feel during Q4 to wrap up projects and meet sales goals and plan for the intense holiday rush for anybody who's in the retail space. I mean, it can be a lot. So needless to say, that to-do list keeps growing. And if you've ever taken a moment to jot down everything you want to accomplish during the season, you're probably familiar with that wash of overwhelm that comes quickly behind it. You probably know that tightness that comes up in your chest or the fogginess, maybe the spinning that begins in your mind that kind of blocks you from knowing what actually matters and where you can get started and what you can let go. This is why I'm taking some time in this episode at the beginning of November before the season really starts to help set us up for success ahead of time. How can we clearly identify where we want to focus our attention first? What would be nice to do? And what are we willing to intentionally put on the back burner for now? And your brain may wrestle with this idea a bit as we begin exploring, but I promise you, there is such a huge feeling of relief on the other side when you, frankly, stop fighting with time. When you stop trying to fit 6 months worth of activities into a 2-month period. The math just doesn't add up. And when we can stop resisting that and fighting that, it's so much freedom. In fact, I also decided in light of this to create what I have called the holiday season blueprint. And it is truly a lifeline for those of us with ADHD brains during this hectic holiday season. So The Holiday Season Blueprint is a comprehensive workbook, and it helps you to clarify your priorities this season, to reduce your stress and your overwhelm, to create the season you truly want. So, in addition to helping you implement some of the things we'll talk about in today's episode, the workbook is super actionable. It has practical tools for managing your time, for planning and tracking your gifts, for creating space for downtime, for planning meals, decorating, self-care, journaling and reflection sheets, prioritizing what's most important to you, weekly planning pages, all of the support you can imagine to make this season the season you truly want. I'm telling you, this blueprint guides you step by step through creating the meaningful, intentional holiday you want without all that excess demand on your executive functions. So this blueprint, it's on sale right now for $7. And you can print it out and reuse it literally every single year for the rest of your life going forward. Should you want to, you're welcome. So you can grab this blueprint right now. You can go through the show notes and tap through the link, or you can head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/holiday blueprint, all one word. Do go grab it and set yourself up for success and just make this holiday season a one to remember. Okay, so let's dive into this idea of a not to-do list for the holiday season, shall we? How do we do this? Well, first thing first, we want to create that long list. So if you haven't already, we want to create that to-do list, that list where you're gathering all the things you want to do. So get a piece of paper, maybe you use a Google Doc, wherever you capture the things you want to complete, and start making that list. Brainstorm everything that's on your mind or that's coming up over the next 2 months. Now, some people like to just grab a piece of paper or a doc and just download everything all in one place, okay? If that is you, amazing, do it. Others like to think in categories. That gives their brain a little bit more direction. That's how I tend to lead. I like to have some categories to help my brain think more specifically about the different areas of my life. Otherwise, I tend to forget. So I would probably create 3 separate lists. They'd all be in the same place, but kind of 3 different categories, one for work, one for holiday, and one for personal. So then I can have a more directed list to help me make sure I'm getting everything out. Okay. It might help you to look at your calendars or look through your emails, whatever you need to do to help you get all the things in your mind down onto paper or a document, whatever you need to get your mind flowing. Now, I will say that if you're going to go electronic to look at your calendar or look in your email for things, go full screen and set some timers, because it can be easy to slip into the rabbit hole of starting to answer emails or doing work. So do set a timer and use it just as a way to get all the things that you want to do, that you think you need to do, that you may do down on paper. We just want to identify what's coming up. Now, your brain may start freaking out right about now. This is when mine usually does. I start to get that tight chest. Notice that. It's okay. Nothing's gone wrong. And remind yourself that you're not going to be doing all the things on this list. Okay? Remember, we're going to be creating a not to-do list. Right now, we're simply starting by getting everything out. You know, the brain has captured all of these things. They're all these open loops spinning in your mind. And so what we want to do is capture them on paper or in a document, because that's going to free up processing power in your brain so your brain can think more clearly. It's kind of like we've closed 72 open Chrome tabs in your brain. So now your brain has so much more power available to think. And then from there, we're going to step back and we're going to ask ourselves, okay, so the season's coming up. What matters most to me over the next 2 months this year? And when I think about everything that's going on in my life and with my family, what actually matters? Chances are your brain will tell you, I don't know. Be prepared for that, okay? It will also probably tell you, well, okay, fine. I guess I do know everything matters. Everything matters the same. Be prepared for that too. But allow yourself time as well for the truth to come up. Okay? Ask yourself, how do I want to feel this season? What do I want as my seasonal theme How do I want to feel and let that be my seasonal theme? Meaning, do you want to feel inspired this season? Festive? Connected? Do you want to feel restful, creative, grounded, joyful, content? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be your theme this season? Because each of these different feelings I just mentioned are going to probably create a slightly different experience for you. If I was guided by the theme of festive, that would probably be a very different season than if I chose to let content or restful guide my season. So what about you? How do you want to feel this season? And why do you want to feel this way? Why is it important to you? Again, there's no right or wrong. We just want to understand it better. Why do you want this guiding you this season? When you think about that experience, right? When you think about feeling content or restful or creative, what matters most to you? What might your season look like? Again, if I chose festive, maybe what matters most to me is attending all the different seasonal activities, all the different events. I might choose to bounce from the different Thanksgiving dinners all over the place so that I get to connect with all of my family and all of my friends, many of whom I haven't seen in years. I might look for all the fun activities and tree lightings and ice skating and caroling. I might plan some holiday parties to host at my house, right? That might be what's most important, is doing all the different festive things that are available this season. Now, on the other hand, if my theme was restful, that would certainly look very different. That might look like a few quiet gatherings, maybe with some people that I love, and probably a whole lot of cozy nights watching my favorite movies, curled up on the couch, crocheting. Maybe it's delicious soups that simmered all day on the weekend, and then I eat it throughout the week for dinner so that it's super restful and I don't have to do a lot of work of cooking after work. So give yourself some space to clarify what's most important to you this season. What do you want to be your seasonal theme? Then once we know that, it's time to explore the idea of the not to-do list and how we can use this to create that season we want. So today we're going to talk about two different ways to use the not to-do list. One is the not to do now list, and the other is the not to do ever list. Okay, so let's start with the not to do now list, because that's probably the one that deserves the most attention, especially given this topic today. Now, I love the not to do now list because it really helps to alleviate a lot of the pressure that we tend to put on ourselves of needing to complete everything immediately or needing to participate in everything and not be left out of anything this year. I find that this list really provides some relief of constantly needing to find more time, get more resources, add one more thing to the calendar, or finish one more project before the end of the year, because you don't have to do it all now. Some of it can be for later. Some of it can go on your not to do now list. So how do we create this not to do now list? How does it work? Well, the good news is we've already gotten started because we've created that to-do list download. Right? You've already grabbed that piece of paper or jotted everything down in your app or whatever, and you have everything in your mind captured down on paper in a document, both big and small. Work projects, after school activities, shopping, decorating, family gatherings, baking, holiday cards, right? Whatever it is, it's all written down. We've also identified your seasonal theme. So you know how you want to feel, you know what's most important to you this season. From there, I invite you to take a look at your to-do list download and identify your top 5 priorities this season. So if only 5 things could happen for the rest of the year, only 5, which 5 would you consider? Which ones would you do no matter what? Now, I know that this can feel like a kind of heavy decision to make, but it doesn't have to be that way because there is no right or wrong decision here. You literally can't mess it up because you're the one who gets to choose how you want to spend your time. And also remind your brain that I'm not saying you can only do these things. right? It's not that you can only do these 5 things. Instead, you're intentionally choosing your top 5 ahead of time so that you don't have to think about these priorities as things get busier. So when invitations come in and all the bustle begins, you've already decided ahead of time what you're for sure going to prioritize. So those most important things don't slip through the cracks, which is so easy for them to do. I also encourage you to put some of those things on the calendar if you can. For example, let's say one of your top 5 priorities is to have a girls' night with your college roommates. And you've been talking about it, you've been so excited, and you wanted to book an Airbnb for the new year. That's what you decided to do. Well, get that on the calendar as soon as possible so that other things don't take precedence over it. And you also have on your radar the fact that you'll likely be traveling during that last week of December. So you remember to give yourself some transition time and you don't book a big meeting at work the day after you get back. So again, this is all about honoring your seasonal theme, your priorities, and your capacity so that you're truly enjoying what can otherwise be a pretty intense season, especially if we're kind of living reactively rather than proactively. Now, if you are having a hard time identifying your top 5, this is where your seasonal theme comes in. So looking through the lens of festive or restful or connected or whatever word you want to choose as your theme, what are the top 5 activities that stand out the most to you? How can you use that intentional theme as a guide to help you constrain your focus to what matters most to you this season? So maybe you have 1 or 2 work priorities, maybe you have a couple of holiday priorities, and then you have a personal priority. Those are your top 5. Or maybe you realize, you know what? Everything in my top 5 is from my holiday list. Great. Again, there's no right or wrong here because every person's schedule and season is different. So trust that you know what's best for you because you do. You know you best. Plus, when you combine your seasonal theme with your top 5, you have such a powerful filter for anything else coming in over the next few months. You can ask yourself, okay, well, is this request or this activity or this project, is it supporting or pulling away from the season I want to create with intention? And again, that brings us to the not to-do list. So if you've identified your seasonal theme and you know your top 5, now it's time to look at that long to-do list download and start moving things to your not to-do now list. So we're going to go through those items on your to-do list one by one. And you're going to ask yourself, does this add to or detract from my holiday theme? If it detracts, it probably belongs on the not to do now list. If it passes, right? If it passes the test, it is connected to the theme, then you can ask yourself, okay, does it add or detract from my top 5 priorities? Again, if not, if it detracts from your priorities, or if it really competes with them, consider moving it to your not to do now list. But if it does support them, or if it's really in alignment with those priorities, keep it on the list for this season. Again, your brain may want to resist this. In fact, it may resist it a lot. Mine likes to. That's okay. This is a practice, and it does get easier the more you do it. So as you go through your list and identify the items you'll add to your not to do now list, remind your brain that this isn't forever. You're not saying that you're never going to do these things. Instead, you're simply accepting reality, which is the fact that we don't have an unlimited amount of time to do all these things. So rather than just living at the effect of whatever comes up, you're instead practicing the invaluable skill of intentionality. You're helping to ensure that you use the time in a way that you want to, in a way that is aligned with your values and your priorities this season. Now, after you go through your list of tasks and you've moved everything that's clearly not supporting your seasonal theme or your top 5 to the not to do now list, I encourage you to also consider all the shoulds or the intellectual yeses on that list. So did you leave items on your list that you're doing from a sense of guilt or obligation because you think you should? Are there things on there that you've intellectually talked yourself into because it would be good to do, but when you actually check in with yourself and you pause and see how it feels, they are very clearly not a full body yes. If you have some of those on your list, I highly encourage you to consider transferring them to your not to do now list. Again, you can always remind your brain that it doesn't mean forever. In fact, I encourage you to set a reminder or an alert in your calendar that says, review your not to do now list, and set that reminder sometime around the end of December, beginning of January, whenever it is that you start thinking about the next quarter. So that way your brain has extra reassurance. You're telling your brain, don't worry, I'm not going to forget this. These aren't just going to disappear into the abyss. Okay? I've made reminders. I'm going to circle back. And you've put those supports in place to ensure those things don't slip through the cracks at the beginning of the year. You can always add them to your list the following season if they align. Now, for anything that's left on your list that isn't obviously attached to your top 5, but it didn't make it to your not to do now list, these are your extras. These are the if time permits activities. So if you've already made time for your priorities and you have additional space in your calendar, amazing. These are the things that you get to fill in. And you can do so confidently, knowing that they're supportive of how you want to intentionally spend your time and attention this season, which is so fun. Okay, the last step in this process is to consider your not to do ever list. Now, I think that this can be an interesting exercise simply because you're reflecting on how you've been spending your time, either in the past holiday seasons or recently, and you're using that reflection to decide intentionally what you do not want to do ever. You're not postponing it, you just don't want to do it anymore. These are not things that you want to postpone until the spring. You don't want them on your list ever. Now, I'm going to stay on the broader side here and just kind of give some general examples because everybody's not to do ever list is going to be vastly different. But I know I always do better when I have some kind of example, so I'll offer some general ones here to give your brain a jumping off point. So the not to do ever list is really this act of kind of reclaiming your time and your energy for the things that, again, genuinely matter to you. And you're doing it by intentionally removing certain tasks or things that you tend to do that are really kind of a drain on your time. And they might also be a physical or mental or emotional drain as well. Now, I'll also mention that the not to do ever list is more of a practice, okay? We're not robots. We can't just switch our programming or download an updated version of our operating system to ensure that we never do a specific behavior again, especially if we've been doing it for a while. So give yourself some grace here. And if you decide to add anything to your not to do ever list, allow yourself to be human. Now, like I said, I'm going to give some general examples for your brain, but use it as a jumping off point so you can identify what might be most supportive for you as you live into your holiday theme this season. So, for example, maybe you add overcommitting to your not to do ever list. So if you found that in past years, you tend to constantly overcommit during the holidays and you're often feeling super stressed and stretched thin, and you tend to get a little bit resentful because you're always doing all these things that you really don't want to be doing, you just think you should, maybe you put overcommitting on your not to do ever list. And you practice setting those clear boundaries to help yourself honor your capacity when it comes to work and personal things and goals and social commitments and everything else. Now, if your brain tips toward perfectionism and you often feel the pressure to make sure you have the perfect holiday season for everybody in the family, maybe we add perfectionism on the not to do ever list as we practice embracing B+ work around the holidays. Maybe you notice that you tend to go overboard with shopping during the holidays and you're super good at finding deals, which is awesome. But because you don't set limits of how much you want to buy for each person, you kind of just keep buying one more thing because you always find the best gifts. But then come January, you look at the bills and you face a bit of a wake-up call. So maybe Excessive shopping gets added to the not to do ever list, and instead you focus on intentional gift giving with whatever that means to you. Maybe you notice you tend to completely forget about self-care during this season. When your time is stretched so thin and you're worrying about creating this specific holiday experience for your family, or you're pushing yourself hard to finish up big projects before the end of the year at work, self-care can be one of those things that are the first to go. And I know for myself that on the other side of that, ironically, is a tired, overextended, and very crabby version of myself who, frankly, can't enjoy the holiday experience that I worked so hard to cultivate. So if this one resonates with you, perhaps ignoring self-care goes on your not to do ever list. So again, these are just a few examples. Others might be negative self-talk or unnecessary pressure and stress to get it all in, or comparing and gossiping, or whatever it is. Check in with what's detracted from your holiday experience in the past and consider adding those items to your not to do ever list going forward. Remember, your not to do ever list is a really powerful practice to point you in the direction of the holiday experience you want. And when you combine that with your not to do now list, you're really setting these strong supports in helping ensure you have space for joy and meaning and creating that holiday season that you want, the holiday season that aligns with your intentions and your values. So as a quick recap today, we've talked about a powerful tool to help you navigate the busy holiday season, which is the not to-do list. So with the holiday season approaching, it's so easy for demands and commitments to pile up. And by setting clear priorities and making decisions ahead of time, we make it so much easier for ourselves to enjoy the season, to create meaningful experiences, and to align with our intentions and our values. And we did this with a simple 5-step process. So number 1, we create our to-do list download. We start by brainstorming everything that's on your mind for the next few months, whether you write everything on one sheet or you organize it by category. It doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. The goal is to not do everything on the list, but just to get it all out of your head so you have some clarity. Number 2, identify your seasonal theme. Reflect on how you want to feel during this season. Choose a theme that resonates with you and the experience you want to have, whether it's festive or restful or connected or content or joyful, whatever you choose. Allow that to inform how you shape your season. Number 3, prioritize your top 5. Looking at your to-do list download through the lens of your seasonal theme, choose your top 5 priorities for the season. Amidst all the demands coming at you this season, these are the things that you want to prioritize above everything else. Once you've chosen them, get them on the calendar so that you protect that time and you prevent yourself from overextending yourself with too many commitments. Number 4, create your not to do now list. So examine your to-do list and evaluate each item. Does it contribute to your seasonal theme or your top 5 priorities? If not, consider moving it to your not to do now list. Similarly, look at those things that are the shoulds, the intellectual yeses, and be honest with yourself about the tasks you're doing out of guilt or obligation. If they are not a full body yes, consider moving those to your not to do now list as well. This list is such a powerful tool to help alleviate all of that unnecessary pressure of trying to do everything immediately. And finally, number 5, reflect on your past experiences and identify any of the activities that have pulled away from your holiday season in the past. For example, it might be overcommitting or perfectionism or excessive shopping or neglecting self-care, negative self-talk, whatever it is. Put those things that really have hindered your experience in the past on your not to do ever list as an intention to continue practicing. By combining your not to do now list with your not to do ever list, you're establishing healthy guardrails. You're creating space for joy, and you're ensuring your holiday season aligns with your intentions and your values. Now remember, these lists aren't set in stone. They're dynamic, they're flexible. That means you can revisit them and adjust them as needed to make sure that each holiday season is a fulfilling one for you. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you know somebody who would benefit from hearing about how to make the most of their holiday season, would you be a rock star and share this message with them? By doing so, you help get these strategies to even more people, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you want to make the most of your holiday season, be sure to grab the Holiday Season Blueprint. It is a lifeline for those of us with ADHD brains to make the most of our holiday season. It is on sale right now, and you can grab it through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/holiday blueprint. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.